Good morning and welcome to a very gloomy market day. I meant to take a clip of me loading this into my car, but there was unexpected snow, so I was dealing with that. So you can hear, I'm sure, just the precipitation falling. So that's exciting. But we are on our way to the second market of the season. It is about 40 minutes away. We're going to go to Dunkin' first. We want to be there by 8:30. It's 7:34 right now, so that should be basically like right on time, because then we only have an hour and a half to set up, which should be fine. I've done it in less, but I don't fully know how I want my setup to be, so to have more time would be better. But yeah, I will try to take different clips throughout the day as much as I can. Fingers crossed that I'm better than the last time. I'm gonna have to honestly see how close I am to my neighbors. That's usually like the thing that stops me. This is my last indoor market of the season, which thank God, because the weather. Starting at the end of April, I will be outside with my tent again. So I'm gonna savor the fact that I have less stuff actually packed back here, because it is an indoor market and we're gonna get going. So I will see you there. Oh, I forgot. I never updated from yesterday. Hang on, we're not leaving yet. So yesterday when I left, I put in a clip of all of the inventory that I have. I then after that made 4 more of the small pot mushrooms. So we're sitting at just under $1,500 worth of inventory. I did want that to be a little bit higher, but with this weather, and also this market last year wasn't like super duper popular, I think it will be fine. We're just kind of put in a worse situation moving forward for like the rest of the markets, because I don't have as much as I wanted prepped, but that's a later problem, not a right now problem. And then for goals for today, I either paid $60 or $65 for this spot. When we get there, if there's a table in my spot, I paid $65. If there's no table, I have my table, I paid $60. So I can't remember, and I didn't really want to look. So it's going to be a surprise when we get there. Our goal for today is to make back that table fee. So we'll just say $65. That would be fantastic. And then a reach goal, we'll put out there $300. Again, this one last year wasn't super great, but I was also one person, like one table down from another crocheter who was doing similar stuff, and I didn't have as much inventory, even though like I feel like I have like less inventory in general than what I want. I do have more than I had last year. I do know that for sure. So we'll see. I also realized last night I didn't get new bags, which I meant to do. So I have very limited bags. So hopefully people brought their own. But yeah, so that's what the vibes we're going into. We're going to go in as positive as possible. It's 10 to 3 today. So hopefully we'll be back home before 5 and kind of be able to rock and roll the rest of the day. So anywho, now for real, we're going. Okay, see you there. feel free to pick anything up. I'll answer any and all questions.
They're very cute.
Thank you.
Very nice.
Thank you.
What are these?
Chicken nuggets.
Nuggets.
Yes. I have emotional support chicken nuggets, pickles, and dumpster fires.
Dumpster what?
Fires. They're down on the first shelf.
Oh my goodness. I thought it was like a fire pit.
Mm-hmm.
It's a dumpster. Will turn you around, little buddy.
Thank you. Thanks. And this is me after the market. I know I didn't do the trend before, but goodness. We're packed back up. We'll go over how this went. It was an interesting 5 hours, but we did make some sales and we did make back the table fee plus some. So I don't know exact numbers yet, but I do know that at least. So that's good. But I'm gonna try and find my way back home. I'm pretty sure I know basically the way. I just have to find the main road I know and then easy sailing. I will say this show does have high schoolers helping for service hours, which is nice. So when I was reloading my car, I only had to do 2 trips instead of 3. So that was good. Woo, for the last inside show. We're done. But all right, here we go. Let's go home. Hello. Welcome to the market recap portion of this video. So it is Friday. So the market was almost a week ago, but I now have time to actually sit down and go through kind of the stories of what happened, what sold, money, all of the things. So if you haven't yet, I would grab a snack and let's jump in. Okay, so simple recap for this market, which I believe I said at the beginning also, but this market was 10 to 3. It was at a high school, and this was my second year doing this market. Now last year when I did this market, I had left not feeling sure if I was going to return. I did actually sign up for this one a little bit later, still within the deadline. I'm not crazy, but definitely closer to the deadline than I normally would, because I was really going back and forth about doing this market again. But last year, and there is a video on that recap, I faulted the low attendance to the Yukon men had won the March Madness college tournament, and the parade happened to be on that day. And where this school is was close to where the parade happened. So apparently a lot of people went to that parade. So this year, I was a little worried we were going to have that problem again because the Yukon women won the March Madness tournament this year. But because of the crappy weather, it actually got moved to Sunday. So I knew, like, waking up that morning that it was like kind of snowing, which was crazy because it was April 12th, but nothing was sticking. And it was just kind of like gloomier, but the precipitation was on and off. And honestly, for most of the market time, it wasn't raining. And we were inside anyway. But like, if people are like, oh, I don't know if I want to go out because it's kind of gloomy out, it wasn't terrible. But alas, we'll go into attendance and all of that. So I was hoping that this year was going to be better. I also had almost double the amount of inventory that I brought last year. If I can find a table comparison, I will put that here of what my table looked like last year as opposed to what it looked like this year. So there was definitely a difference. I was in the same exact spot. So we could start unloading at 8:30, and I did get there for close to that 8:30 time because I knew I was going to need the time to set up. Last year at this market, I was one table away from a crocheter, who sold similar items to me. And so when I got to the calf this year, I looked around and realized I wasn't near anyone who also had crochet, which I was excited about. What I didn't know and found out a little bit later was that in the gym, because this was an event that goes from the calf to the gym, it's all like kind of connected. But in the gym part, there were at least 3 other crocheters, and they were all legitimately like in a line. Like they were like all next to each other. So I said to one of the crocheters who had come over to me to talk to me like during like a lull in the afternoon, when I went to go drop something off in the gym to one of the coordinators, I saw that they were like all like right there, and I passed her again. I said, I am so sorry, I didn't realize you guys were all this close to each other. And she's like, yeah, like, and I was, that is crazy. I also found out from a different crocheter who came over to talk to me that she specifically asked before signing up for this market if there were other crocheters, and was told, no, we're keeping it like pretty like low, like there might be like one other, like kind of a thing. And she was like, okay. And when she talked to her neighbor, another crocheter, she said that she had applied only a couple weeks prior when like the call had gone out that they needed more vendors. And even though in that blurb it said no more crochet, she still applied, figuring why not, and got accepted. So yeah, a little rough, but you know, it's fine. It was a fundraiser for the school. So, yeah. Anyway, but so, setup was standard, pretty normal. I tried to get a couple clips of me setting up. I need a tripod is what I need. I need a tripod and I need a camera, because currently I'm still using my phone for all of this. And so, once I get those things, look out world. The content's gonna be crazy. But I tried to get a couple clips of me setting up, but basically I was just trying to move things around because I only had the 1 6-foot table, and I was just trying to display everything in a way that made sense. Because the last market I did, we had the 4-foot and the 6-foot, and in this space it wasn't gonna fit. It was very clear. It was like a 1 table per situation. So I definitely moved some of the higher stuff around to make sure everything could be seen, and ultimately I was okay with my setup. It's not my favorite setup that I've done, to be completely honest, but it worked for what needed to happen, where like you could see basically everything, which was the true importance. I wanted to make sure that you could see everything. But I set up, and I was probably done setting up about 9:45. So once I was set up, I kind of looked around at the other vendors next to me. The one who was next to me last year was not the same, actually, on either side. On one side, the poor woman came from having to shovel snow because she was from upper state, or we don't really have an upper state. She was from northern Connecticut. That's the correct term. And so she had traveled down to where we were. So she had to shovel first to get there. And then my other neighbor was a 7-year-old entrepreneur who was in a sparkly dress and was selling pens with the different like polymer like clay bead things on the tops with like different characters and things. And she was very popular because she was 7 and in a sparkly dress, and she was selling something that people generally use every day as a pen. So that was some steeper competition, but it's fine. We want everyone to succeed. But when we started, let's see, what else? I feel like I'm all over the place in recapping of remembering what was going on. Oh, this booth fee was $60. I don't know if I said that anywhere. It was $60 to be there, which was steep. It was the same as it was last year, and I felt it was also steep then. But alas. So our goal was to make that back and preferably a little bit more, but that was our general goal. So it started and there were definitely people. It was a slower like trickle. There were always people shopping, which I do appreciate when like you don't have like gigantic like lulls of time, but in the morning there were always people. Definitely the most amount of people between like that 11:30 to 1 o'clock time. Also there were a couple of food trucks, so that was helpful, but to at least get people there like for lunchtime. But definitely a slower market. I did pull up my square so I can see everything that I sold and like when it happened, and so we'll go through all of that. The traffic, it was consistent in terms of there were people coming in like at a regular clip, but it wasn't like busy. Like there was never like a line at the door to get in, because I think you had to pay a couple dollars to get in. That was unclear. So that was kind of rough. And like you would have like, because we were the first room that people saw, so like people would go through us and then we'd have a small lull as they were going through the gym, and then we'd see them again on their way out. So then like the gym was having a lull when the people were coming in. So like it was just like kind of like, it was definitely a slower day. I did crochet during it. I was able to make a cat and a popping mushroom, like one of the bigger ones. I probably could have made more, honestly. What I got done here was great because it's at least more inventory. And so I was able to then put out, so I had 6 cats instead of the 5, because I always like to have at least 6. And then I just think it looks better in the crates. And I was severely low on popping mushrooms, so that was good to restock. But okay, let's get into sales. So my first sale was actually to my entrepreneur neighbor, the 7-year-old. She came over before the show officially started, and she loved all the stuff, and her mom was telling me that she had, the last fair she had been to, she was also next to a crochet vendor. And I said, oh, that's rough, that like you came put next to us. And she's like, yeah. And so she really wanted a rainbow bee, and so this is what the bees look like, but they're just rainbow. If I have a picture, I will put it right here. But she kept picking it up, really wanted it. She read the sign wrong. She thought it was 10 instead of the 12 that it is, but I figured it was going to be a lot more, because it was a lot in that whole interaction with her and her mom about getting the bee, that I was like, I will eat the $2. It's okay. Just take it. So that was my first sale. So I put it into Square as a discounted bee for $10. So that was sale number 1. I made a sale 17 minutes later for a pickle. It's a free Instagram pattern by Vanilla Grainy. I never know if I'm saying that right, but I'll link it down below. The bee pattern is a free, or I think you can also buy it on her shop, but I used the YouTube tutorial from Crochet by Jenna, and at this point I just have it memorized because this is one of the first plushies I ever made. So I just kind of know that now. But yeah, so 1 pickle sold. Pickles are funny because they get a ton of attention. These and the chicken nuggets always get a ton of attention. But if they're going to be bought, the person literally will come over, like the buyer of pickles / chicken nuggets, and just look at it, pick it up, and just hand me money. Like, pickle and chicken nugget purchasers are the most decisive consumers that I usually have at my booth. It's just what I've noticed. So then, let's see. So that was at 10:17. At 10:49, I sold another bee. And I believe that one was regular. Then at 11:30, I sold 2 bees. You're just gonna see this bee a lot, just like pop back up. One was rainbow, one was the typical colors. Let's see. At 11:31, so like I said, like 11:30, all of a sudden, like a bunch of people were coming by the booth. It was like a kind of a slower first hour, hour and a half. In the first hour and a half, I only made 3 sales, yeah. And then it picked up a little bit. But 11:31, I did sell one of my popping mushrooms. This is a pattern by Cable and Canvas. This is their Etsy, the one that you can get on Etsy. They also are the designers of the mini pops that I sometimes sell, and those, and that tutorial is on YouTube. So that, yeah, Cable and Canvas. And then at 11:48 and 11:52, so back to back, I sold 2 octo keychains. So 2 octos to one, 2 octos to another. So for a total of 4 keychains. If you watched my prep video for this market, which is up on the channel right now, then you would know that I was hemming and hawing about making my octos and whales all into keychains. I never provided a follow-up to that in that vlog. I did. I ended up putting all of them on keychains, and I think that was the right choice because A, it freed up space on my display shelves because I was only going to have the one table. I needed to display things a little bit differently than I usually do. And B, I just felt like it made more sense to just put them all as keychains because it makes them more functional. It gives them more of a reason to be bought. So yeah, so I had 2 duos get sold. I sell these for $6. And yeah, so that happened. And then at 12:11 and at 12:17, I sold 2 other bees. So at this point, I think I was officially sold out of rainbow bees. I had only had 3 and they all sold. And then I had 6 of the regular bees, and I ended up, spoiler for the end, selling 4 of them. So I came back with 2. So yeah, so these were back-to-back sales of bees. And then at 12:58, I also sold another bee. And then all of a sudden my sea turtle started selling. So I brought 3. This is the Tiana turtle from, I think it's all from Jade. Sells this on her Etsy. And so this one actually didn't go to the market. I just made this week, but I, spoiler, sold out of my sea turtles, so I didn't have another one to show. So this works. So one of the other crochet vendors also was selling sea turtles. She was using a different pattern, and she was using acrylic yarn, but I had seen a lot of them kind of go by. And I think what probably ended up happening is that she was running low. And so, because this was around 1, yeah, it was 1:07 when the first sea turtle sold. So I'm thinking that might have been what happened, is because she didn't have any left, I then became a person that could sell sea turtles. So, you know, it happens. So I brought 3. At 1:07, I sold the first one. At 1:34, I sold a whale keychain. And then at 1:36, I sold another sea turtle. At 1:37, I sold a bird. It was actually a cardinal. I don't have any more cardinals to show, so here's a flamingo. This is the Annie Caraway art pattern, bird pattern that comes with like ways to make, I think it's like 16 or 20 different birds, but all with the same pattern. It's all no-sew. Big fan of this one. I got it on Etsy. I'll link all these down below. And then birds. And then, crazy transaction, a girl came over and with her aunt maybe. And, oh, this was all at the same time. So she bought a sea turtle with her aunt and then was still standing there when I was selling the cardinals to another child. And they saw the axolotls, which are here. This is the Crochet by Jenna axolotl that's all no-sew that you can get on her Etsy also, or her website. And so they were looking at them, and I brought 6. And her aunt looked at her and was like, well, do you want an axolotl also? And she had already gotten a turtle. I sell these turtles for $20. I forgot to say that. I forgot anything else. Oh, birds I sell for $15. Popping mushroom I sell for $12. Keychains, all the keychains are $6. Okay, all right, we're back up to date. Anyway, so slow girl, she's looking at the axolotls, and so she points out 3 of them. And it was like the purple, the light blue, and the teal, I want to say it was. And her aunt just picked up all 3 and said, and these 2. And I went, okay. So that was a $56 transaction because it was 3 axolotls and a turtle. So that was kind of crazy. But grateful because, I mean, I had already paid for my booth fee, but that right there basically paid for my booth fee. So that was exciting. And then, so that was all between 136 and 138. And then at 154, I sold my last sea turtle. And then I made my last sale at 248, and it was another whale keychain. However, that was not the last thing that I had leave my table, because our bestie, the 7-year-old entrepreneur, came over, and she had been in the gym with her mom because she had a lot of help. She had her grandma there all day. Her aunt came by, her dad came by. Like there were a lot of people at her table. And so her grandma was manning the table for like the last like half hour to 45 minutes. And she went to go look around the gym at all those vendors. And she had found that at her last market, she was able to barter for pens. And she could get people's product. So she had already scored a tiara from someone. And they came over to pick out pens. And then she had something else she like skipped over, and I think someone had given her like a bracelet. But then she went to the other crochet vendors, and they agreed to also barter with her, which is actually when I then ended up talking to them, because they came over to pick out their pens. And so at the end, she came over to look at my stuff, and she had been talking about the purple crayon. And so the purple crayon looks like this one, it's just purple. And she had been talking about it all day since she had gotten the rainbow bee. She was like, oh, but I also want that purple crayon. I said, you know, it's totally up to you. You don't want to spend all the money that you're making here, but like, you know, whatever. So at the end of the market, she came back over and she said, how much is the crayon? And I said, it's 20. And she said, so that's like 4 pens. And I said, mm-hmm. And now I'd seen the other crocheters did this already. And then she started to look for something more expensive. And I said, oh, that I would probably need money for, but I can do the crayon. And you've been talking about the crayon all day. So why don't you do the crayon? So then I got to take home 4 pens. So I did bring 2 of them to work. And they are nice pens, but yeah. So that's how I am out a $20 crayon. However, I did think that this market, you needed to give a raffle prize, and I would have probably given something like a crayon, or honestly, probably like a cow, one of the smaller ones that I make. So all in all, I thought I was going to be handing over a plushie to this market, and I didn't. So I was like, that's fine. But I was like, I'm not going to be the like one crocheter that doesn't trade with this child. And she had already bought something from me legitimately, and we were neighbors, so it's fine. And I can actually, I can make crayons pretty quickly, so it's fine. But yeah. So that was the last technical item that left my booth, was the crayon. So what that means in terms of money. I had 17 total transactions for 22 items sold. Last year at this market, I sold 12 items. So it was more, but in 5 hours to only sell 22 items is not great. So for money for those 22 items, it was in card $52, in Venmo it was $48, and in cash it was $153, which was a total of $253. So not great, but we did make back our booth fee, so that was good. With the booth fee being taken out, and honestly, the square fees were like maybe $2. Like, so I'm not going to count them towards this, just because, I mean, I think only like 3 people used their card. So that's fine. So with the booth fee being taken out, that means the total like take home money was $193. Obviously, that doesn't count for supplies, like, you know, all of that stuff, but just the general number that's normally what I report on was $193. So great. Will I do this market again? Probably not. Not just because UConn keeps apparently winning and they keep celebrating on this weekend, but I think attendance this year was a little bit more than last year, but definitely not a lot more. This is also an expensive table. I know in some places it's really not. I know in some places anything less than $100 is shocking. I get it. I do a lot of school and church markets because that's generally where kids are, and that is a big part of my market, or a big part of my audience for my product. So those do tend to be a little bit cheaper because it's usually a fundraiser, and it's not usually run by like an event company that puts on markets. So it is a pricier table. It is farther away from my house. I always forget that it's like a 40-minute drive, which is fine because I like to usually stay within 40 minutes, but it is definitely on like the farthest side. So it was like a little bit over 30 vendors. For 4 of them to be crochet, that's a higher amount. And it's hard because it wasn't like it was just like, oh, someone was doing crochet blankets, someone was doing like crocheted accessories. Like we all had plushies, and I think 2, maybe 3 of us were like solely plushies. Like I had my hanging flowers that I bring too, and I had scrunchies, but like primarily I am a plushie vendor. And I disclose all of, like, on any, if you've never done a craft fair before, on applications, it asks specifically what you sell, and you have to list out everything. Now, that doesn't mean I have to list out love cats, pickles. Like, I don't have to do each thing, but I do put crocheted plushies. I put crocheted small accessories like hanging flowers, and I put, or well, how else do I put it? And I put like crocheted small accessories like scrunchies. So I know I'm not doing blankets. If I have bags, I also will put down that I sell crocheted bags. But if I'm like right now, I'm not really making bags, so I don't put those on applications, but I try to be as transparent as possible in my application so that if they're trying to decide who to accept, then they know that, oh, this person's very similar to this person. Maybe we only take one of them, and that's okay. I would rather be rejected from a market rather than try to add more like competition to someone else. So I I think that there's enough space in this arena, in this marketplace to succeed, for multiple crocheters to be able to be successful. I just think it makes it a little bit harder when there's a lot of you at a smaller event. So, I mean, just in hindsight, my first market of this season, there were probably like 200 vendors and there were only 4 crocheters. So, or 4 or 5, but still, it was still like a lower number in terms of, and there were a lot more vendors. So, just something to think about. But I definitely think I will probably skip this one next year. The coordinators were lovely. I just think that at this point, this one's kind of done for me, and that's okay. But yeah, so let's see. We went over what happened, money, what sold, bestsellers. Okay, yes. I knew I had something else. So for bestsellers, definitely by far the bees. 100%. Bees are so funny because the last market I did, the other market of this season that I did, not a single bee sold. Not a single one. I don't know if it's because the Minecraft movie came out. I don't know if there's because there was more kids. I don't know if it's because we were closer to spring than we were at the end of March. Who's to say? Who's to say? Or closer to spring weather. We were technically in spring in both instances, even though the weather didn't really seem like it. But the bees kept being sold. I should have brought stuff to make more rainbow bees because I'm pretty sure I could have sold more. Another bestseller were the turtles. I sold completely out of the turtles, and I had people coming back saying, oh, I should have bought your turtle because I saw it earlier and it was so cute. So definitely, these are a little bit of a pain for me to make. It's because I complain. I complain if something's no-so, but they're really not that hard to make. It's a very easy to follow pattern. All from Jade did a wonderful job when she designed this pattern. I just get a little cranky when I have to do multiple parts because you pre-crochet the fins and the head and then everything gets crocheted in. There's literally no sewing to this, but you do have to just do some steps. And so actually how I made those turtles before is that I did multiple heads, I did multiple fins, and then I just started to put everything together. So, which did work out, kind of like more like an assembly line. I'll probably do that again. And then the axolotls, but that was really because that one little girl bought half of them. So axolotls do usually do pretty well for me. How I had them displayed this time was not very prominent. And I feel like if they were a little bit closer, like, and down on the table, I maybe would have sold out of them. It depends on the demographic. Likewise for cats. I had 6 cats. None of these cats sold. Cats are usually still pretty popular for me, and just at this market, they just weren't selling, which is fine because it's less that I have to make for the next one. So that works. Keychains actually ended up becoming a bestseller too because I sold 6 of them. So that was exciting. I definitely think I made the right move to make them all keychains. That's not saying I'll never go back to having pocket pets. I still had the $5 choice for the mini pops, and none happened to sell at this market, which that was also surprising. Those I usually can't keep in the basket because, especially when I show that it's a quiet fidget, which I was, they usually get bought also because they're like the cheapest thing on my table. And yeah, so that wasn't, but that's fine. I'm sure they will sell at the next market, so I'm not that worried. But yeah, those were bestsellers. I will say every market, it is a little bit different. It depends on the demographic. It depends on the season. It truly depends. And bees do still do well for me. I mean, I know I didn't sell any at the last market. I know I sold a ton at this one. previously also, they are pretty good sellers, especially my rainbow ones. So I definitely need to make sure I restock all of those for my next markets. Yeah. Wow, this is rambling. Okay. My next market is a week from tomorrow. Oh my, okay. Great. I'm currently filming a video right now also, which you will see up on the channel after this one, where I am trying to do a plushie challenge to help bulk up my prep, because not only is it next Saturday, but then I have another one this Saturday right after. And I usually don't do back-to-back markets, and I just don't think I realized when I signed up for both of them that it was going to be back-to-back. So that's fun. So we have to do that. So I have to make sure I have plenty of inventory for both of those events, which is why I'm doing a plushie challenge, which is why I need to wrap this up, because I need to go back to crocheting. If you made it this far in the video, thank you so much for watching. Definitely comment down below any questions you might have about markets. I do know these first two markets were a little bit slower for me, but it will pick up, and you know, I'm always grateful for anything that sells. I am always grateful for the extra money. I will never not be grateful for the sales that I make. It just when you're a business, and this is like a side hustle, which like it is for me, it's just weighing your options of what markets make sense and which don't. That's all. And I'm sure my pen friend next door to me will definitely be back next year, because she was making bank. Everyone was buying pens from her. So, you know, it just depends on the day. It depends on the day. But anywho, thank you so much for watching. If you've subscribed, thank you so much. I cannot believe we are over 400 subscribers. That's crazy. We are on a path to 1,000 subscribers by the end of the year. Hopefully sooner. So if you liked this video, definitely consider subscribing and liking this video. It helps me out a ton to get out to more other crocheters. I do a bunch of different videos, including market preps, market vlogs, recaps like this was, and some crochet challenges. So if any of that sounds like a good time to you, definitely consider subscribing and sticking around. If you'd like to see any of the behind the scenes type of things that happen in my small business, you can follow me on social media. I have a TikTok and an Instagram. Both are at I Can Make That But. If any of these things you wish that you could have bought at this market, you can certainly go to my website, which is www.icanmakethatbut.com. There are some things up for sale there. Not everything, but some of the things are on there. I also, my email's on there and ways to contact me if there was anything that you did see that you would want to buy that's not on the website. And with that, thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye!